Hi everybody. I decided to make a little teaching PowerPoint since we can't get on a boat. I've been doing some reading and learning and putting something together just to go over some basics for one design sailing, especially the J80, and some concepts that I've been learning about and some resources. And so what we're going to do with this one design race is or actually with, I guess, this talk, is describe the general order of what the race is about and the construct of doing a one design race for most one design racing. And then talk a little bit about the most important factors overall, some sail shape and trim principles that you all can use and we can all use in our different positions. And then the roles that I divided out for a 4-person J80 female team. So the whole concept is that there's usually a starting line that has the boat, here you can see would be to starboard, and then the port will usually be some sort of mark. Oftentimes it's just a buoy, and the reason why they put a buoy in there and is because you have to really set the starting line up to be perpendicular to the wind. So the whole idea of one design is that these boats are made to go close hauled, completely upwind and then downwind. All of the controls on the boat, to be able to compare them to each other, are made for close hauled racing. And in order to do that, you have to have upwind marks. And so the race course is supposed to be square, and we will check that when we come up to the starting line. You'll see boats that turn up into the wind, and they check to see if the wind is square or if the wind has changed since the committee boat put down the mark. You'll even sometimes have races postponed because the committee boat put the starting line and then the wind changed and they had to change the starting line, or they have to change the upwind mark. And then they have an upwind mark. Sometimes they have an offset, so you'll see 2 marks. You always are going to end up rounding the one that is the farthest to the right when you're coming around, if there are 2. And oftentimes the offset is smaller, a smaller buoy to make it more obvious, but you are coming from this direction. And the wind should be coming directly towards the starting line. And so there's my little pretend J80 coming up to the starting line, and then it's going to tack over because you can't directly sail towards the mark because it's directly upwind. And then the boat will come upwind, 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 will turn around the mark, and then we'll deploy the spinnaker or hoist after we've turned the boat to where we're downwind, or at least 90-degree angle. And then we will sail the boat on one jibe or another downwind until we're rounding the leeward mark. So you see that we don't go between the boat and the mark on the way back, and we will round that mark and we'll douse the spinnaker usually before we get to the mark, and then we'll be ready to go upwind again. And so 2 times around the course make 1 race. And so you don't win the first time you go around. You're going to go back to the windward mark and then hoist the spinnaker again, and you're going to come back to the leeward mark. But to finish the race, you will go between the boat and the mark. In very, very big regattas, they might have 2 marks that are on the leeward side, and you can choose which one you want to hook around, but you always go in the same direction from this side and then around the mark, even if there were 2 of them, unless the instructions say that you can go either direction. Okay, so the most important factors and goal to be considered as crew. Everyone on the boat should know what they're supposed to be doing on each leg of the course. And so no matter what your position is, or no matter how important or unimportant you feel, the reality is everyone's supposed to be doing something. If you're not trimming a sail, then you should be thinking about the next maneuver, looking for wind, looking at boats, checking out the shape of your sail. There's always something to consider. You can even eyeball the speed or the compass, and different ways to help out. But when we are coming up on a mark, that means that there's a whole bunch of stuff that's about to happen, and you should really be thinking about the steps. Early on, when I was just starting on different positions and learning them, I would say them in my head. It's okay to whisper them out loud. I'm going to do the tack first. I'm going to pull the tack out, then I'm going to pull the pole, then I'm going to finish the tack, and then I'm going to hoist the spinnaker. And I was just reminding myself of the steps that I was about to take. And so that's always super helpful. And even if you write them down, or you again recite them, you ask questions, that is the time to figure out, hey, am I the one that's going to be doing the pole this time? No question is too elementary before you coming up to the mark. When you're not coming up to the mark, looking around and spotting issues, if you're not the person who's calling wind and you're not looking at other boats for tactical reasons, then look at the sheets. Is there a sheet that's running out on the boat and is about to go overboard? Did we not get the tack line in the bull pulpit? Is there something twisted? Those are all, maybe 100 times someone on a boat has seen something on a leg that has prevented us from having a problem. So really that's when just keeping your head in the game and kind of looking around instead of sort of thinking that you're not doing anything important, because those moments can really make or break a race. Okay, so I think, just basically like the sails are the power of the boat. And if you haven't really looked too much at the physics of sailing, or even if you have, there's never too many times to go over this. So, and looking at, this is kind of like an airplane. This is an airplane wing, which could also be shown as sort of a sail. So here we have the air that is going to go on both sides of this curved wing or sail. So this is an airfoil. That's what we would call it, because the air that is on this side is traveling a shorter distance. So the air molecules are closer together, so they're higher pressure. And this side, since it has to go a longer distance because of the curve, the molecules are farther apart, and so there's less pressure. And the laws of physics, the high pressure wants to move towards less pressure, and this causes lift. And then that allows the aircraft or boat to go forward because of that power. It is a little bit more complicated than that, because you have also the forces at play on the keels. So that's for a sailboat. That's why the boat doesn't only move sideways, because you also have the keel, the counterbalance that's on underside of the boat, and really moving the water past the keel. And those forces are a huge factor of a sailboat's movement. Okay, and so the big picture here is controlling this curve of the sail, as you can imagine, will control lift and allow you to have different powers, because the wind is going to be different strengths, and if you're overpowered on a boat, then you can't control a boat. If you've ever been on a boat that's been overpowered, the boat goes crazy on its side and you start to broach and you really just can't take control of the boat, and that's not going to be fast at all. And so along with lift, which is a great thing, there is another force that's called drag, which is a side effect of lift. And drag is really the definition of all the forces that slow a boat down. So it's not just the curve of a sail or heel of a boat. We do have some other forces that play between the water and the boat's surface. But those are things that we can control. So we can control the drag by controlling the belly of the sail, or the depth of a sail in the curve. And we can also control drag by making sure that the heel of the boat doesn't become too excessive and too much drag, by controlling the sails and trying to decrease power of the sails when the wind gets too strong. Because the more drag you have, the slower the boat is going to go. So in all situations, and that's what all the boats are doing, they're trying to maximize the lift that they have, and they're trying to minimize the drag. Everyone that is on the sailboat is trying to maximize lift of the sails and the forces that cause lift, and they're all trying to minimize the drag. And so if you do it the best, then your boat goes faster, even if you're not doing any maneuvers at all. It's how you're trimming the sails, how your rig is set, and also the person helming, how they're turning, if they're turning the rudder a lot. And so that's our common goal. Whether you are trimming a sail at that moment, whether you're driving the boat, whether you're just moving your weight around to try to hold the boat down, we're all trying to maximize the lift and minimize our drag. It's really helpful if you don't know or remember the parts of the sail to just learn the words. I read books, I took sailing classes, read the words, learned them, forgot them, learned them again, forgot them. Talking about them to each other out loud on the boat all the time is the best way to learn which words go with which parts of the sail. And really just being on a boat where people were asking me to pull on things and describing different things that were happening, that's when I really cemented it in my mind. So feel free to just talk out loud on the boat and talk about the parts and this and what is this set at, and just reinforce these words. Okay, so the helmswoman, often called helmsman, is essentially trying to steer the boat, really trying to turn the least amount that they can. Every time you turn the rudder, you can see the keel here underwater, and you can see the rudder. If you turn the rudder one way or the other, essentially you're putting a brake on the boat to slow it down. And so we don't want that to happen. The person who is helming, we want them to have to steer during a leg of a race as little as possible by balancing the sails, keeping the boat in control, and then you shouldn't have to turn the rudder too much to keep that boat in that groove and close hauled. The boat should pretty much sail with minimal touch of the rudder. And so that's where everybody is working together at one time to try to maximize boat speed. Okay, and so the sail trimmer, whether you're trimming the main or the jib, is you're trying to check the shape of the sail and make changes and adjustments to maximize as much belly or depth as you can, but keeping control of the boat. And also something called the twist of the boat, of the sail. And the twist is the angle of the top of the leech. So the leech is the back edge of the sail, and the angle of the top of the leech compared to the angle of the bottom of the leech or the boom. If whatever's easiest for you to look at. The foot of the sail should be attached by the clew to the boom. So you want to look at that angle, and that angle will be referred to as how open or closed the leech is. So if there's a lot of angle between the bottom of the leech and the top of the leech, and we call it open, and you can see it's half open here and closed. You can also see that the curve of these draft lines on the sail change, and it helps you kind of visually see that the sail has a different angle here at the top. And then the belly or depth of the sail is how curved the whole sail is. You can also move the position of the belly or depth, but we're not going to talk about that in this little talk, because that's changing halyard tension, which we probably won't adjust that much. But you can move the position of the belly for different purposes. But generally you want to set the sail up so that the belly is in the middle of the sail when you raise it with the halyard and is looking like it can have its maximal depth. Okay, so the main trimmer has a few more controls than the jib trimmer to deal with to change the shape of the main. Now you might not be the one always pulling all the controls, but definitely the controls on the boat will affect it. Most of the time you're going to be looking at telltales. You're going to be looking at telltales on the leech of the sail, We talked about maybe putting draft telltales on. We don't have the draft telltales on the J80. Draft is another way to look at how the air is moving along the sail and give you an indication of how much twist you have or if it's too far trimmed or eased. So right now we just have leech telltales, and we want all of them to be flying back with the top leech telltale dipping behind the sail only about 20% of the time. So you want the top one flowing back 80% of the time to be properly trimmed. And then we also have controls besides the main sheet. We have something called the traveler. The traveler, I'm sure you've seen one. You've probably moved the traveler when someone says move the traveler up or help me with this or that, but you might not have really thought too much about the interplay between the traveler and the main sheet when it comes to twists, and that's generally what you're going to be changing when you change the traveler and the main sheet. So these two, traveler and main sheet, are very closely related to each other and intertwined. The Vang, the outhaul, and the backstay all will affect the mainsail, and they will be put on to keep the boat from becoming overpowered when there's too much heel or draft in the sail. And so when the sail, when the conditions pick up to medium or heavy air, then you want to have increase Vang, outhaul, and backstay. And so finding that right mix is something that we'll talk about. And then the halyard and the rig tension absolutely affect the sail shape, and they overall will limit how much power you will get from your sails. So the rig tension, which is the responsibility of the skipper to set up, should be set for the conditions. And if you're out there doing multiple races, you might even need to change them between races to make sure that you can get as much sail as you can out of your, as much power as you can out of your sail. You're not allowed to change rig tension during a race, and so you're not allowed to put any turns on or off the rig. However, backstay will change the rig tension, will also change a similar tension, and that is something that you can do during the race. And so backstay is used, but overall rig tension should be set properly. Okay, for the twist, you can see the difference here. I like this one textbook that I was reading. I like its pictures a lot. Here you can see the traveler. The traveler is this track, and you can see that if you put the traveler up very high on the track, then you have a lot more twists, and it moves the sail to be more open on the leech. So you can see the top is pointing this direction a little bit, and you can see as you come down, the boom has to be set with the traveler up high. The boom can't come any higher than center line, and that would be adjusted, fine-tuned by the main sheet to get it to center line and no farther up. And you can see a lot of twists. So we need a lot. Twist is also more twist is more power. And so they must have light wind too, and they have maximal twist in their sail to be able to get as much power as they can under the conditions. So they have the traveler all the way up, and they have the main sheeted to the boom is at center line, and they have all of this twist in the leech. And this picture here, the leech is all the way on the other side, and so the leech is closed. You see it, you can pull the traveler over, and it is going to be all the way down here, and the boom you can see is below the center line, so it would be over here if it was at center, but it's actually below. So that also the interplay of the main trim is eased a little bit, and so you have no angle. It's a straight line from the leech top all the way to the bottom, so the leech is closed. So that would be in more windy conditions where you are overpowered. You don't need more power out of your sails. You actually need to not have as much power, and so you move the traveler down more and more till it's all the way at the bottom of the track if necessary. Okay, so this is just to reiterate your traveler and your main sheet. So here's your traveler and your main sheet, they work together. So if I was to move my traveler, I would be tightening my main sheet because I would be decreasing the distance here. And that's why you might move your traveler to move the main angle that you can change the boom, but you also need to ease the main sheet if you're going to move the traveler back and forth, or you're just tightening the main sheet, which pulls the boom down and closes the leech. And you didn't want to do that. You just wanted to change the position. You want to keep your twist. You don't want to straighten your leech. And so you have to, when you're moving one, we have to also make an adjustment to the main, usually easing the main to give the traveler more space. If you're going away from the main sheet, if you're coming towards the main sheet, you might need to trim it. But that would be evident by looking at the telltales if you needed to trim the main. Okay, and so the main takeaway for the main trimmer is that moving the traveler down in gusts to keep the boat from being overpowered is what you really should do to keep the twists as high in the sail as possible until the traveler has to be all the way down, in which case you can't use the traveler to respond anymore because you're just overpowered. You already have backstay and outhaul on, and so the other thing you can do is to use the Vang and only go in and out with the main sheet, and that's called Vang sheeting, and you should do that only in heavy wind. So that's something that we would talk about if that's what we needed to do. So the main trimmer's goal is to maximize the power and stop the boat from becoming overpowered, and the outhaul is something we use all the time, and it controls the size of the belly of the sail at the bottom third of the sail. And so here you can see that there's not a lot of sort of laxity in the sail. It's pretty tight. So the outhaul is on hard. It's nice and flat. There's not a lot of belly. So this would be for windy conditions when we're trying to depower the sail. And here you have a fullness of the sail. So the outhaul is eased. And so you're getting more power out of this sail, and you're not overpowered. The backstay is, again, like saying we can't tighten the rig when the wind increases, but we can pull on backstay, and that has a downward force, and that downward force is going to close the leech. And so we also can see in this picture that it is going to control the belly and depth in the top 2/3 of the sail. So the outhaul is controlling the belly and depth in the lower 1/3. The backstay, pulling it tight, is going to tighten and reduce the belly on the top 2/3 of the sail. And so here in these pictures, you can see that the backstay is completely eased, and it's nice and loose. The rig is loose, but you can't really, that's not something we're going to necessarily control too much when we leave the dock. But they're showing you here these draft lines and see how rounded they are compared to the one where the backstay and outhaul is on a little bit. And you can see that they're just a little bit straighter, not too really appreciable to me in this picture. But this one where they're on all the way, it definitely looks tighter. The whole sail looks tighter. Also, the lighting's a little different. There are a couple other images we can look at. Actually, I think the lines drawn on these pictures are done a little better. So you can see the curve, really curve in those draft lines, and you can see how they're much straighter here. And so next time when we're out, we'll take the backstay and outhaul completely off. We'll look at this sail, and then we'll put them on, and we can look at the difference. Okay, and so if the traveler is all the way down and the boat's still overpowered, we have to put the Vang on hard, and you can see the Vang is going to be a downward force on the sail, on the leech of the sail, and its effect when you put it on is to close the leech. And so it does allow you to use the main to go in and out with gusts. That's what you have to do. So when you have it eased, you're using the traveler to respond to gusts. As the sail, as it gets more medium air and you put on outhaul, backstay, and Vang a little bit, you're going to you do close the leech a little bit because you're trying to just not be overpowered. And then as the wind increases more, and you need to close the leech so that you don't become overpowered and you put the Vang on all the way, the boom lowers, and when you sheet and ease the main, trim and ease it, it's just moving the boom back and forth. But that's what you have to do with gusts because you don't really have any other choice at that point. You're overpowered. I like this image. They did a good job with this one. So you can see the Vang is eased here. So the boom is raised up. See, it's allowed to kind of raise up with the wind. Nice big curve of the leech. The leech is open. Lots of twists with the Vang off. And really seeing this distance between the shore and the boom, you can see how it's raised up, and you can see the curve of the sail. With the Vang on all the way, you can see it pulls the boom down, that downward force, and it closes the leech. The leech is very tense here, so it's closed. And now when you ease and trim the mainsail, you're just moving the, instead of having a downward force on the sail, you're just moving it in and out. Everyone should know that when the boat is way overpowered and is beginning to broach, and you've already had backstay on all the way and outhaul all the way and all of the things that are and Vang on all the way, someone has to blow the Vang and has to completely release it to allow the boat to come back into control. You're going to spill the air out of the sail. So in heavy winds, someone should always have it in their hand and be prepared to let it off quickly. And you can see that here, that if you had it on hard because it was heavy winds and you were still overpowered and the boat was starting to broach, if you release the Vang, the boom is going to lift up and it's going to curl the sail, and wind is going to spill out of it and save your butt from going over. Okay, so this is a great summary slide for just looking at, different part of air and what you should do with these controls that we just talked about. I like to read them and make sure that I agree with what they have on here. And this is a little chart. I like charts for like quick moments when I don't want to think about why. It's not the way that I learn. I like to know what all of these things do and think about why they do the things that they do. But the chart is great if you print it and have it on the boat, which I might do, and have it laminated so that whoever's trimming the main sheet can think about what probably they should be thinking about settings. The one thing that's a little bit odd is in very, very light air, because the wind is not really kind of catching the sail and you're not moving at all. So when they're talking about very light air, they're talking about the boat's really not moving much at all. You're just trying to get the boat started. They tell you to put the backstay and the outhaul halfway on to try to catch the wind. So I haven't really tried this one out, and I haven't been on a boat where the guys have asked me to do that, but I thought about trying that if I am in a position where I have super light air and the boat really isn't moving. Maybe next time I'll give that a go. The rest of these three are pretty standard for racing conditions, for when people, you have backstay and outhaul and Vang, all that completely off and light wear with a traveler high and the main sheet eased. And then you can see how the traveler goes to the middle and medium air. You're going to have some outhaul on, some backstay on, some Vang on, and then in the strong heavy air, you're going to have all the backstay, outhaul, and Vang on hard. And the traveler is going to be all the way down. Since the Vang's on hard, you're going to be just main sheeting, Vang sheeting in the gusts, because there's not much else you can do. Okay. The jib trimmer's job is the same as the main trimmer's job. You're just trying to get the correct shape of that sail throughout the whole race. It's almost never set. The jib is going back and forth all the time, unless you're not sailing close hauled and you're going to put it in a position that the helmsman tells you to set the jib at, and then that person's going to drive. But if you're close hauled, you're going to be making micro adjustments throughout the race, at least when you're going upwind. The two things to consider are, again, the belly depth and the twist. There's two controls, the sheet and the car. The sheet is going to change twist. And so here you can see they're giving lots of twists, means there's lots of power. That means that the sheet is eased, allowing it to be looser and give that twist. The sheet is a little bit more pulled in, and here you see the sheet is all the way pulled in. And here you can see the pictures of the twist here. I like it when they normally start with lots of twists like they did up here, but they switched it down here. So here, this one is the lots of twists. And again, you can look at the angle between the bottom of the sail and the top, and you can see that you have a lot of angle here, so lots of twist. So the sheet must be eased. And in this one, there's a little bit of twist, so the leech is half closed, and this one is all the way closed, and it's a straight line, so it must be maximally trimmed in. Okay, the car will change the belly at the foot of the sail. And the car can be moved. If it's moved forward, as you would imagine, it loosens the belly and loosens the bottom of the sail, and it makes more belly. And belly would be equal to power. And so car adjustments can be made in different wind conditions. It also does change the leech because of the angle of the pull of the sheet on the leech is going to be different depending on where the car is. So it's a little bit more complicated, and it's not always super clear where the car should be. But what we can do is make little adjustments and then see how the sail shape looks after that. And here in this picture, they're just showing the belly of the sail get bigger with the car moving forward. And when you're moving back, the belly gets flatter, and you have less belly, less depth. Okay, so just like in the main, in light wind, you want more belly, more twist, more power, and so the car might come forward slightly and make more belly. The sheet will be eased to make more twists in the sail, and we're talking about like one hole forward. We're not moving the car like a foot forward, but those might be the adjustments that you make. The important part of the jib, which I think everybody kind of knows and is the only thing that people tell them, is that you're looking at the telltales. Telltales are telling you how much twist is in the sail. And so you can look for the inside and outside telltales. It's a little hard in this picture to see the difference between the two. But here you can see that they're not lined up. So the one is going back. The inside one is flying back, and the outside one is kind of going up in the air. And that's when the position where you would know that you needed to ease the sail. And when you ease it, think about you're adding twist, you're adding power, and that's what you're doing when you ease. So this has two little twists, and it's telling you to ease. These, they're both streaming back parallel, so it's balanced. And in this one, the inside telltale is lifting, so you have too much twist. You need to trim the sail. The important part to remember with this is that it might not be just you. The driver could have turned the boat, and so you have to work with the helmsman or helmswoman to make sure that easing the jib is the appropriate thing, unless it's very obvious. Okay, and so essentially in this picture, it's showing you the different twists. I think we just looked at that one before. Let me check. Yeah, we did. It's the same image. Okay, and so the same concept. As the wind increases, you have to reduce the twist, reduce the power, and that's why we trim in harder as the wind increases, and we flatten the bottom of the sail. Okay, so as a rule of thumb, if you're sailing close hauled, which that's what we're going to be doing, we're going to be sailing upwind close haul, and if you can't get the telltales flying on the jib, all of them, the car's in the wrong place. And that's why you have people asking, oh, move it one hole forward, one hole back, trying to get all the telltales streaming. These boats that we're racing, One Design boats, they're made to sail close hauled upwind for One Design. So all other points of sail, so if you're reaching, you're not going to get the perfect jib shape because the boat and the sails are made to be sailed close haul for One Design racing. So here you can see just this little summary slide with the complete shapes, what they look like, and what adjustments should be done with different wind conditions. And I wanted to point out the car is a little bit more complicated than something like the sheet. And that is because the car does change the leach and the angle of pull of the sheet, so it can close the leach if you move the car forward. And so some of the things that you do with the car is preventative to prevent the leach from falling open when you change the trim of the sheet and the twist. And so you can note that median means wherever your car's base is, and we have lines drawn on the deck so you know where the base is. You can see you may move it slightly forward or slightly back, but we're really not making a lot of adjustments to the car in big portions. And I've been to like the Midwinter's J22 regatta, where the people who won the regatta, who were professional sailors, say that they never moved the car throughout the whole race at all. And so I'm not really sure whether or not that should be an automatic thing you should think about. I know that I do it a lot on the boat, ask to move the car, but if you can't get the jib into a good shape and you close hauled, you know everything else is good, then I guess it doesn't really hurt to move the car slightly back or slightly forward and see if that makes the shape better. Okay, downwind sailing. So most of the time we're going to be close hauled upwind, and we'll probably be sailing downwind at between a 90 and 45 degree angle. So we're not going to use the sail as an airfoil when we're downwind sailing. We're going to use it as an air dam. So it's just going to be catching the air, and it's not going to have those air molecules be streaming on the two sides with the pressure differential that we had when we went upwind. So the telltales in downwind sailing are meaningless, and the strategy of the sail shape doesn't really apply as much because we're just catching the wind. The jib's going to be furled when we're sailing downwind, unless we're about to take the spinnaker down. Then we do open the jib to make it a little easier to take the spinnaker down, and also to have that head sail going so that we don't sail without a head sail and lose a lot of speed. The main is going to be positioned so that the top batten will be parallel to the boom, and that will be dependent on the angle that we're sailing. And the outhaul and backstay will be completely off, and someone will hopefully be trimming the spinnaker. The spinnaker is a big air dam, and on the J80 it's asymmetric, so it's not going to be meant to be sailed directly downwind like a symmetric sail is. Rather, it's sailed on an angle. The trim sheet should be eased always, so you see this curl that happens in the spinnaker in the edge, and it's trimmed when the sail starts to collapse. You get too much, it collapses in. You trim it so that you always have this curl, and you're always easing it back out again and seeing if the spinnaker can take more ease. The worst thing you can do for speed, besides something drastic like, drop the sail in the water or something, is have the spinnaker trimmed in too much and strapped so it's not curling, and you're really losing out on having some speed that you're spilling out of the sail. As we approach the leeward mark for rounding, when we're going to go upwind again, but we're not going to finish the race, but we know we're about to go upwind again. I tried to find pictures with women. I couldn't find very many J80s with women. We're going to unfurl the jib to block air from going into the spinnaker so that we can douse it, and also to have a head sail so that we can keep sailing as fast as we can through the leeward mark rounding. And so 2 people will be dousing the spinnaker and getting that down, and the other person in front of the helmswoman will be trimming the jib temporarily until the spinnaker is doused. So this is how I've divvied up for a 4-person team for J80 racing for women. We're going to have someone on the bow, the most forward, and that person is going to be looking around most of the time. So they're not going to be sitting there dealing with, is this, sheet faked out or wrapping around the winch or anything like that. Most of the time they're going to be looking around. For upwind, you can see their roles and responsibilities. For upwind, they're going to be calling gusts and lulls, telling us a puff is coming so that we know that we're about to ease sails. They're going to be looking at the race course ahead and looking for which side has more wind or which side has less wind, telling us what they see. They might be calling waves if there's a lot of waves. They're also going to help grind for the jib trimmer on attack, because when you're starting off, you might not be able to get the sail on the other side and trimmed in quick enough. You want to keep as much speed as possible, and so in case that person needs a grinder to allow them to get the sail in as fast as possible. And then they are also going to kind of look at the compass every once in a while and call when there's a header, when we have big shifts, in case the helms person hasn't called it already, so that we could think about tacking. They're going to be hoisting on the halyard and telling the skipper and crew about boat positions of other boats that we might have some interactions with. Downwind, for this position, this person is going to call gusts, puffs coming, and lulls, and also waves. So they're looking behind the boat, and they may occasionally look forward to look for the mark, but mainly looking behind and looking again for wind differences. Is there wind in one side of the course versus the other? They might be looking about a boat that's trying to cover us or get in position to cover us. They're going to assist with the douse. And then at the end, looking, because they're the bow person for the tack line, making sure it's in the bow pulpit for the next hoist. And during the jibe, they're going to hold the main over till the spinnaker is brought around the forestay. So that we don't want to jibe the whole boat, because you can wrap the spinnaker around the forestay under those conditions. The next position, middle one, the second one most forward, is going to handle jib trim and assist with the spinnaker hoist and douse. And so they will look for the jib shape and jib trim needs by looking at the telltales and having them fly as much as possible throughout the whole upwind leg. If the leech telltale, which happens a lot, it's easy to over trim the jib on the J80. If it's wrapping around the outside, the jib needs to be eased a little bit to make sure that it's not trimmed in too much. And thinking about cars, we probably won't move them too much, but it's just something to keep in your mind if the boat is being overpowered. And we need to change the belly of the jib, and making sure that they can tack quickly and get the jib trimmed as fast as they can, so that we can keep boat speed up during tacks. In downwind, this person is going to assist with the hoist. Then they're going to furl the jib after helping hoist the spinnaker. They're going to grind for the spinnaker trimmer if that person needs it due to the wind conditions. And looking around at the sheets to make sure they're not tangled if we need to jibe. During a jibe, the person will help the spin trim pull the spinnaker across the boat. So as the spinnaker trimmer is pulling on the sheet, they're going to also pull on the sheet ahead of them to help make it easier for them. Okay, the position 2 is the third most forward person, and that person is going to be helping with the traveler, the main, and fly the spinnaker. They're going to look for issues with the main shape, trim, look at the telltales a lot, trim or say that the main needs to be eased or trimmed if they see that, helping put the traveler in position during maneuvers through tacks, helping the boat respond to gusts if the driver isn't using the traveler to ease a traveler in gusts and then pull it right back up. And if we have a lot of wind, then that person would be helping use the main sheet to traveler instead of the traveler to respond to gusts. For downwind, the person in this position is going to trim spin. They want that little curl in the spinnaker. In the jibe, you're going to pull that sheet as hard as you can to pull the sail across the forestay along with that person in front of you. And this person, when they're dousing the spinnaker, will unfurl the jib will be unfurled by the person in front of them, but they will be trimming the jib the best they can through the douse, through the leeward mark rounding to keep the boat going as fast as possible. And then the person helming the boat is going to drive. They're going to call it for tacks when they see that there's a header or someone lets them know that our compass heading has changed a lot. They're going to handle the boat maneuvers and steer the boat, keep it in the wind slot, call for more backstay or outhaul when it increases and they feel overpowered, and take it off when it decreases. Watching overall boat speed by looking at the speedometer, asking crew to make sail trim adjustments if they see something the crew has not, and also listening to the bow person about gusts, wind changes, and tactical stuff throughout the upwind leg. Downwind, driving the boat and working very closely with a spinnaker trimmer to maximize speed and gusts and waves. Oftentimes you're going to point more downwards towards the leeward mark in a gust, because you have a little bit more power to point directly downwind, and then coming back up to get more power and waiting for the next gust. Call for the jibe, call for, and also this person will be trimming the mainsail in the downward leg. The person in front of them will be sailing the spinnaker. And that's pretty much, that person will also tell the crew when they're going to douse the spinnaker and unfurl the jib. So these are the 3 books that I've read. I also read another one that's called The Physics of Sailing that was pretty cool. But maybe it's more like just understanding why the boat's moving and the forces that are at play. These 3 are more practical things that you can implement. I think I just finished these 2. I'm rereading this one. These 2 are super easy. I read them in just a couple hours. Took notes, and I even made quizzes with them so that I can retain the information. If you're interested, if you do end up reading them or want to test your knowledge, let me know. I do remember that I said one thing wrong earlier, and I remembered it when I went to the next slide. On this slide here, when I said if they do have a gate where they have 2 of these marks, I said you're still going to turn this way, but you're not. More times than not, you're actually going to turn that way if you're rounding that one, and you're going to turn to the right, to the starboard, if you're rounding the one that is over here. So I said that wrong, and I remembered it when I went to the next slide. But that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions. I hope this wasn't completely boring. I like it. I like learning more about why we're doing the things we do. And so let me know what you think. Okay, bye.